Every episode celebrates original content written by real people who experience real emotions. I'm Rayanne Thorn Krueger. Welcome to Real Words. Well, we're going to call this Take Two. Anybody that was tuned in before and missed what we had going on, we missed it too, by the way. There was a glitch in the system, and this just proves that this is all real. That I'm a real person, Steve's a real person, and sometimes technology doesn't go our way. So I'm going to start over. Right, here we go. In 2017, I launched a project called Music Laguna, and I can look back on that time and say what an amazing, one of the best experiences of my life, diving into something creative. And a project within the project was called 30 Days of Music. And during that time, I was visiting 25 to 30 different venues, seeing live local artists. I think a few of those nights during that time, I saw up to 5 artists each evening. And one of the artists that I met has joined me today, and we met in a night hotspot in Laguna Beach called the Marine Room. And I had the opportunity to meet him several more times during those 30 days of music and during the life of Music Laguna, and also had him perform at my home for a charity that my husband and I were raising money for. And so I am so pleased and proud to welcome Steve Maggiora to Real Words. Yay!
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, such an amazing opportunity for me to get to chat with you. I've always wanted to do this, and I would sneak up between sets and talk to you a little bit, but I'm really thankful that you, as busy as you are, and we'll talk about this, as prolific as you are with your art, your craft, your skill, your talent, that you have granted me 30 minutes of your time to go over. And yeah, actually it's turning out to be 45 minutes of your time since
it's all good.
We had this little glitch. So I really appreciate it. Before I jump into my questions, I would love for you to give us give us a little overview of you and what you do.
So my name's Steve Maggiora. I'm a musician and a songwriter and producer and whatever pays the bills that month. But yeah, I'm a creative. I like to classify myself as a creative, just because that's what I enjoy doing the most, is just plucking things out of the ether and making something of it.
And that is the gist of what Real Words is all about, is talking to individuals that have this creative drive within them and drives them to produce content, whether it's a book, a play, a movie, a song. And a song has many parts, and especially if you're a lyricist and you're adding words to that. And part of that is infusing it with emotion, right? So that it is thought of and remembered and attaches to other humans as they're listening to it, and they can feel and interact with that music somewhere in their soul.
Absolutely.
So you are a songwriter and a musician. Which came first?
Musician definitely came first.
Okay.
I think. Although I did start composing from a very young age. My piano teacher, when I was 8, when I started with her, started us on monthly compositions. And so as I was learning music theory, it was a really great tool that I ended up kind of stealing from her for when I was teaching private lessons back in my 20s. And it was great because it gave me ownership over what I was learning. So she would have me write something on the piano, compose something on the piano, and then notate it however it made sense to me. And then as she taught me, traditional music theory, I was able to apply those to what I was actually creating every week and working on. And I got the bug from that, and was composing.
Do you have a number of how many songs or compositions that you have in your quiver?
I don't. It's it's thousands at this point. I mean, I've got almost 1,000 songs up probably 1,000 songs up on streaming platforms and stuff. And then that's just from the last 10-15 years.
Yeah,
So
when I first met you, you were performing with a rock band, a
mhm.
country-fied rock band, right? And then I saw you perform alone as a soloist.
Yeah.
And then I saw you perform again at another place that was very different than the other venues I'd seen you at. It was
Hmm.
I want to call it like a speakeasy.
Yep.
It was an underground, amazing place, and you were there with I think Adrian Olmos, and he was
Hmm.
playing saxophone, and you were a duet playing together, and it was very different than the rock music. So when you describe yourself as a musician, do you put yourself in a genre, or have you part of your creativity has it come from being open to
It's
other
definitely
other genres?
it's definitely come from being eclectic. The Why I classify myself as a musician, one of the reasons is that I'm able to throw myself into different musical genres pretty seamlessly. So, I started on classical music. I got into musical theater in high school and everything. I was
Okay.
definitely a theater kid and choir kid. And then shortly after college, I started producing backing tracks for live performance, basically like karaoke tracks for a performing arts organization. And that was everything from Broadway to classical to pop to
Wow.
rock and top 40. And being able to do you know, uh, like something from Wicked and then turn around and do a Beatles tune and then turn around and do some Michael Jackson and then do some, Doobie Brothers or something, like, was a lot of fun for me. It
Right.
keeps things fresh and interesting. And when you're sitting at a computer screen for so long, it's nice to have a little variety in what you're doing so that it doesn't get,
Absolutely.
you know, tedious. But
Absolutely. I think my favorite, I mean, I loved everything I saw you perform, but I think my favorite was New York State of Mind,
yeah.
and how incredibly into it you were. I mean, it was so beautiful, and I was able to film you performing that and share it with a lot of people. But to zoom in on your hands as you're playing the
Hmm.
keyboard, and then to hear your vocals attached to that and feel the emotion. I mean, I love that song. You got me there because Billy Joel's my favorite all time artist,
Yeah.
followed very closely by Steve Maggiora. When
Oh,
I want to tell you this because I meant to send you this as a private message, but last year Spotify did this thing where they showcased the songs that you listen to the most.
yeah.
And my number one song that I listened to the most was your duet you did, Such Great Heights.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
it
Yeah.
called Great Heights or Such Great Heights?
Such great heights. Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Oh, I must have listened to that song hundreds of times in
Oh, thank
2023."
you.
So I love that. And I know it's a cover, but
Hmm.
you always add Steve Majora to whatever you do. So no wonder you're so prolific in composing and writing yourself. When you're doing that, where do you draw inspiration? What inspires you to sit down and say, I'm going to write a song about this?
I it depends on the day, to be honest.
Okay.
Sometimes I try to stay very organized. I've got my calendar is a really detailed spreadsheet, and I kind of nerd out about it
Wow.
sometimes just to keep myself on track and make sure that I'm not dropping the ball on anything. Um, but so sometimes it's like this is the only day this week that I have to be able to work on this, or the only day that I've got a 4 hour block where I can sit down and write something or something like that. So sometimes it's just a matter of making the time in an otherwise busy schedule to sit and be able to be creative and to flex that muscle. To me, it's much akin to meditation and self care.
Yeah.
Going and getting a massage for the soul, or something.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but
So
it's important
on
to
that
me to
calendar, do you
yeah.
have time blocked out to write? I mean, do you say going to sit and write right now?
Yeah, like if I'm looking at the next couple weeks on my calendar, I'll be like, okay, I've got this day free. Then I look at my to-do list and I'm like, okay, these are all the things that I need to get done for work that are deadline based. These are all the things that I need to prep for something that's coming up in a couple months. These are the things I need to do around the house,
Wow.
so Sundays are laundry days, Monday morning I try to get up and have a block between like 10 and 2 to just sit
Yeah.
down and write and
Well,
or
clearly,
review old projects or old songs or something. Today I've got the 504 horns in Louisiana are tracking some horns for me. And so I've been in contact with them, all
that's
day. So that's
amazing.
on the calendar for the time that they're working on it. And,
Well, clearly that method works for you.
yeah.
It's clearly something that works for you. So when if a young kid or somebody that's decided, hey, I'm going to give all to whatever art form I want to pursue. Maybe I'm a songwriter myself,
Mhm.
and I said, hey, Steve, I need some advice on how I can achieve this, how I can be successful at this. What would your advice be?
Make time to do it. That's the first and most important thing. You just gotta find the time. There's always an excuse. There's always something that comes up. There are always distractions, but if you want to do it, you just have to sit down and do it. So
Yeah,
if
that's great advice. I've heard from authors who have said you just have to do it.
yeah,
You just have to do it. So
half the
was
time
there
if you spend 2 hours talking about doing something or
yeah,
formulating a plan to do it, then that's 2 hours that you could have just been actually doing it instead of
right,
you
right.
know
Just do it. So did you
yeah.
have a real job that helps support this fun? Or have you always said that I'm going to make money doing this?
I always told myself I'm going to make money doing music.
Good.
And there's so many different forms. I worked for Abercrombie and Fitch and the stock room at at the store at the or was it Main Place Mall
Yeah.
for like 3 months and hated it and couldn't even get on the schedule half the time.
Yeah.
And so I ended up just, instead of doing that, I found some other college students that were having issues with music theory and started tutoring, and that's under the umbrella of music,
Right.
teaching,
Right.
teaching and doing. I spent many years doing accompaniment work for like junior high and high school choirs, taught private lessons, was a music editor for a little while, just helping trim stuff for radio and for different sync projects and stuff. And
Right.
went to the LA Recording School. They had an accelerated program, so I was there for about a year and a half in 2007, 2008. And there's just so many different things that you can do under the umbrella of music that doesn't really require you having to get a quote unquote day job. All
The
those
the
bar
real
gigs,
job. I hate
yeah,
the real job. The real
all
job.
those bar gigs that I used to do down in Orange County, those were the reason I was doing so many of them was because that was the best way for me to supplement my income, to have most of the day to do other session work for people and to create stuff myself. And then I could go and try out songs. It's a lot of cover work that you have to do. And I tried to put, as much of myself and make them as tailored to the way that I, give art to the world. And it was great because it was a release for me to be able to, after a long day, just go out and have some fun. And each gig, sometimes I was doing 3 or 4 in a day, and
Yeah.
would have different musicians on each one, so that it was a different experience every time. And then doing that, allowed me to keep a roof over my head and be able to maintain the level of production and creativity that I wanted to maintain.
I love that you worked to support the work. I mean
Yeah.
that makes sense. It not everybody can do that or has the confidence to do it,
Hmm.
right? To say, I if I do this, if I give this much to it, I will be successful. A lot of us struggle with that. Oh, I can't give up this because that's how I'm making money and
Yeah.
that's what I need to do. But our
Well,
passion lies here and our talent lies there.
and it depends on what your concept of success is.
That's true.
For me, success was really only measured in, am I able to support my lifestyle and myself? I'm a I'm not really tied down. I've got a wonderful girlfriend, and family up here in the Bay, but I don't have any kids. I'm not married. I don't have other people to financially support.
Right.
So for me, if it meant that I had to, eat some potatoes for a month, that was fine. The wonderful thing about most of these bar gigs is that if they had a kitchen, you always got food. So I could
Right.
take, one thing off the,
Starve all day, but
yep,
I can remember
bunch
there
of
was
iced coffee and,
that's right. Coffee will keep you awake all night. I
coffee
one
and
time
rice.
I saw you at the beginning or at the end of a night one time, and then saw you like at an outdoor event, and you
Hmm.
were playing, and it had been like within 6 hours
Yeah.
of the nighttime and then the daytime, and I you were playing, and I walked up and I was trying to get your attention. What are you doing here? First of all, I didn't know you were going to be here. You were
Yeah.
on the you were a session musician filling in or helping out, and that I'm sure that's been part of your work is the session work that you've done.
Yeah.
And which do you like better? I'm guessing that you like um, you know doing what's in your heart, writing, composing, performing your own music.
It's
But
all
there's
it's all part of the same thing. They all scratch different itches.
yeah,
The nice thing is being able to do both made my life feel a lot more balanced. You know, any job where you go and sit at the same desk and do the same thing day after day can get tedious. So that was the nice thing about being able to perform live was that I always went out and did other things and had a change of venue
yeah,
multiple times in a day. But also, what was really nice about that was the opportunity for networking, because people that would see me perform there might be musicians that were coming in to scope out different places to play, or it was their night off and they wanted to go in to hang out with their bartender buddy, that and see who was playing
right,
on that night. And it led, one thing kind of always fed the other. If I was in the studio working all day, you're working on one project with one person that might go and talk, and you'll get some business word of mouth from it. But if you're actually out there interfacing with people and they see what you do on stage, and the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. I got a lot of calls for that, and a lot of calls for other gigs, like the Marine Room gig gave way to a bunch of like yacht gigs and stuff, which got me through the pandemic. We were
right,
did a bunch of shows in people's front yards, and doing neighborhood concerts just for like the 6 or 7 houses around the area,
right,
or going out on a family's yacht up on the top deck with my keyboard and playing for a couple hours, doing that. And those are
yeah.
folks that I met on the gig.
And you also through the pandemic you were performing online for
Yeah.
free. I mean, sharing on Facebook Lives or wherever you could perform live, and it
Mhm.
was I really feel that the giving back that you do, and you do so much of this, you give back, you share, I mean, just come agreeing to come on Real Words with me to talk about this, and the core of what Real Words is about, which is
Mhm.
celebrating original content. I think that comes back to you in many different ways, and
Oh, absolutely.
clearly the networking is part of that. I mean
Yeah.
that helped you too. Uh, to touch on that core of what Real Words is about, one thing that I ask my guests, and of course I ask it differently depending on the guest and what their creative outlet is. Uh, I have an ongoing concern for an issue that might occur because of AI, because of
Mhm.
artificial intelligence. And I've already witnessed this in the industry that I work, which is marketing, is that is there a risk that we lose creativity or individuals who are creative become stifled or they hit roadblocks or because they rely on AI? What do you think AI does it pose a risk for creativity in the future?
I think it can, but I think it comes down to the person. Um, as a songwriter, you're constantly hitting and overcoming roadblocks. It's, and I feel that way, about pretty much anything creative. Like you'll get to a point where you're just like, I don't know what to say. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe I'm getting a little out of my wheelhouse of what my experiences have been, and I don't have the right words for it. I personally think that AI can be a really phenomenal tool for creatives if used as that. To rely on it, I think to rely on anything is detrimental. Um, I can rely on my microphones, I can rely on my keyboards, but if I don't know how to work the tool, then
Right.
it's not really doing me any service. And I feel the same way about AI. There's I've been seeing lately. There's this whole new thing where uh, they'll have a text conversation and have an AI generated song that's behind it, and it's absolutely hilarious. And it's completely 100% made by AI, and that's great. But it's a crap song,
Right.
like on its own. In the context of what they're doing, it's fine. But that's to me that's the same as do you like American cheese or do you like Gruyere?
Right.
If if you're happy with what's being fed to you,
Right.
then good for you. And if you're hungry for more, then I feel people are always going to seek that out and want the deeper thing. You know.
I remember the first time I saw a looper, somebody looping
Mm-hmm.
live, right? And I was blown away by it because that required a certain amount of talent and
Yeah.
expertise in that technology, right? And then we have amazing musical artists like Billie Eilish, who is using looping and all the other tools
Mm-hmm.
to create incredible music. And she has a huge fan base, and we know that she's not just using AI to
Yeah.
produce her music. You know that behind that is an incredibly creative person, two incredibly creative people, two
Mm-hmm.
incredibly creative people that are producing this music. So, who who has inspired you? What artist? What musician? Who are your favorite? Who do you like to listen to?
Uh, two the two probably biggest ones for me are the band Thrice from Orange County. They've been my favorite band for a long, long time.
Okay.
Uh, and and Marc Broussard was the guy that the artist that I heard back in 2005 for the first time, and he kind of inspired me to start doing things a little more soulful and inspired kind of how I took my voice and built it from what I was doing at that point, which was mostly musical theater stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, but I think, and a lot of people make fun of musical theater, but there is the storytelling aspect behind it,
oh
right?
yeah,
And the soul behind it. So I think that that comes out in an artist like you that
yeah,
is I don't know if you I mean do you ever get lost in a performance? Because I remember watching you and
oh
thinking,
yeah,
does he know there are other people around that we get to witness this
yeah.
genius that's happening right now?
It's
And
yeah. Performance is I try to always do it from the soul,
yeah,
and it can get tough sometimes, especially when you're doing it as much as I used to, where it feels a little redundant. And, you're like, oh, this is the fifth
forced.
time I've done this song today. but you try to do something new with it. You try to keep pushing the envelope, and I really try hard never to phone it in,
Yeah.
and that's part of this thing that I learned from doing musical theater for a long time was you have to make they have we had a saying in the performing group I was in that X equals X. Like whatever you're feeling on stage is what your audience is going to feel. And so if you're feeling down and whatever, like to pick a song to let it out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
don't don't try to pull one over on them because audiences are smart and they'll see right through, you know,
They
all of
they
that.
will. Well, I've
Uh,
I've never seen you phone it in. I've seen you perform at least, I'm going to say a dozen times at least.
mm,
And I've never felt that way. I always felt like you were giving it all and that you were very much aware of what you were contributing to the people around you,
yeah.
and you could see the joy in how you perform. And so I want to make sure that my viewers and listeners definitely seek you out. So let's talk about what's next for you. What's next
Yeah.
for Steve Maggiora?
I have got a bunch of stuff coming up. Lots more music. I've been doing a Patreon page for since 2018 now, which is pretty nuts that it's been going on that long. And since the pandemic, I've been releasing new music every Friday. So that's been my pledge to myself and my creative itch to put something out every week. Which when I'm on tour, it tends to be I have my on tour and my off tour times,
Right.
and so I'll do a big content build in the time that I'm home, and then work on it throughout the tours and everything
Okay.
when we have off time. But got some great music that I've been a part of that's coming out this summer and going to be released, publicly, and excited to get back into doing more writing and creating and getting some of these emotions out. Uh, got some touring on the horizon and just trying to keep it going.
That's wonderful. We'll share in the comment section for when we release this. We'll share the Patreon page and other places, your website for sure, where
Yep.
people can come and find you. And are you available to perform to with if you're available? Will you still perform in people's backyards, or has
Yeah.
Steve Maggiora grown up and out of that?
No, no, no. I do. I miss performing my own stuff. To be honest, it's
Yeah.
been an incredible year of touring so far, and looking forward to doing more. But I do miss doing my own stuff for people. And the Bay Area recently moved up to the San Francisco Bay Area, and it does not even hold a candle to the music scene in Orange County. So
I know it's
uh,
so surprising to me. I probably try to go out to dinner a couple times a week, and always there's live music.
yeah,
Always. I even posted a video the other day of walking from my car into the Trader Joe's, and there's was a violinist playing right outside the Trader
nice.
Joe's. It was amazing. So that it seems to be a hotbed for local musicians to get
Yeah.
out and really perform. And so and I'm sure there are other places. I know Austin is like that. Austin, Texas
Mhm.
is like that, and there are parts of New York City that are like that as well. I can't thank you enough for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And is there
It's great.
other ways that people can follow you? We're going to share your Patreon page. We're going to share your website. Is
Yeah,
there?
Instagram is great. I'm on there all the time, and I'm going to be posting a lot more content
Okay.
coming up, which is going to be fun. It's at Steve Maggiora official on
Okay.
Instagram, and yeah,
Well, thank you, Steve, for sticking with me through our technical difficulties
of
today.
course.
But that is what makes it real. So
Hmm.
we have to enjoy that. Well, best of luck. I know that you have recently moved. We were going to have maybe a little bit of a performance, but I will share in the comments a video that I took of Steve, if that's okay with you,
Perfect. Yeah,
Steve,
yeah.
from 2017.
My hair was a lot
Uh,
bigger back then.
yes, you had big hair then, and you
Yeah.
still have the potential for big hair. I know
Oh
you
yeah.
have big hair, but you can see why I really he became one of my favorite artists immediately, and how talented he is, and I so thankful that you joined me today. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. This episode was made possible by Never Enough Media.